Hi everybody, I'm Sandie La Nae. Welcome to Psychic Creations. We have a very interesting story and show for you today. As you know, I'm an author and I've written several books. One title called Weird Reno was co-authored with my special guest today. I would like you to welcome Nevada Historical Society docent and historian Arline La Ferry.
Hello.
Yay! I'm so honored to have you on our show today, Arline. This is great. This is great that you're here. Okay, well, I've got my cheat sheets because I can never remember anything. But before we get to discussing Weird Reno, I would like to ask you a few questions so our viewers can get up close and personal with Miss Arline. How about that?
Sounds like fun.
All right. All right. Well, what piqued your interest to get to want to learn the history? Well, history.
Well, I moved from San Francisco up to Virginia City, Nevada, and being in such a historical town, it was all around me. So I learned a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and then when I moved down into Carson City, my next door neighbor introduced me to a wonderful big fat book called Thompson and West, History 1881, and it just piqued my interest, and from there it took off.
Wow. That's awesome. That's incredible. Well, now, do you like all of, U.S. history or just our wild, wild West history?
No, I pretty much center on Nevada, northern Nevada, and the beginning of Nevada, and just Virginia City, Carson City, Reno.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Who cares about back east right now, huh?
Or Las Vegas. I've
Yes,
never even been to Las Vegas.
There you go. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, when did your interest in history turn into your passion for research?
When I moved into Reno and I went to work for MGM, and then I got involved with the Historic Society in Reno.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I think that was my next question. Yeah. How did you find out about the Nevada Historical Society?
Well, anybody who's involved in any of the history in Nevada always know the Historic Society has all the records and all of the things like that. And there were a number of people that were my age that were volunteering up there and had mentioned it to me, so I went up there and I volunteered.
Oh.
And started that, and that was about in 1984.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
And
okay.
from then on, it's been one romance after another with the Historic Society
Oh, fun.
and me.
Yeah. Well, true. Well, and then you applied to, or do you have to apply to become a docent?
Well, in those days, you went through docent training, and in 1984, I went through docent training, and it wasn't as, I'm lost. It wasn't as intense as it was a little bit later when I reapplied in 2004
Mm-hmm.
to brush up on my skills and that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, okay. Because I was going to ask you, how long did the docent training take and what did it consist of?
yeah, in 2004 when I took a refresher course, it was 6 weeks. We would go up there
Oh.
every week and we would have a speaker, and we would read books, and we had to write a little term paper type thing, and my term paper was on the Sears Roebuck catalog and all the wonderful interesting things that you could get in there, from stoves to drugs and baby carriages and things like that, and it was a lot of fun. Now in the year 2014 and 15, the docent training is now just a one-day event.
Oh, that's all.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's all.
yeah.
And mostly it's for people that, to get a feel of what the Historic Society is,
Mhm.
and then that way you can get hands-on training once you either go into the library or if you work in the gift shop or
Mhm.
whatever.
Oh, I see. Okay. the same thing, just different times then.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, now your talents and your interests led you to a specialty division in the NHS, right?
Yeah, in the beginning, I started working with Eric Moody, not working for pay, but as a docent volunteer in the manuscript department, and that was a lot of fun. We would get these boxes donated to us, and I would open them up, and it would be like Christmas time, and I would have to sort them and put them all in order, and it was like one of the collections that I worked on was the Thurman Roberts collection, and you've got the Roberts House here in Carson City, and it was all kinds of books and pictures and all kinds of things, and that was a lot of fun, and it took me a couple of weeks to figure out who was who and who was why, and in doing that I found that Thurman Roberts, who was James Doane Roberts' son, his wife was Harriet Hale Roberts, and her family is the Hale and Norcross from Virginia City. And then I realized in going through everything that we had nothing on Calvin Hale. Everybody talks about Hale and Norcross mine. Well, who was Hale? Who was Norcross? So I made a special little collection out of that for him, and I even found a picture of him, Calvin Hale. And then the funny thing was, that was about 10, 12 years ago. About 6 or 8 months ago, I was walking down the hallway in the back going to the artifacts collection, and there was this gorgeous, beautiful leather trunk, and I stopped to look at it, and I looked at the little metal plaque on it, and it said Calvin Hale, and I went,
Oh.
Calvin Hale! And Christine Johnson, who in charge of the artifacts, she says, who is he? And I says, I've got to tell you who Calvin Hale was. So that's why it's like Christmas when you're working with the artifacts. Sure. And you're also working with the manuscripts.
How interesting.
And I've worked with all kinds of different manuscript collections. I even got to work on the Old Bridge Ranch. The Historic Society bought that collection, and I went through, and it was an eye-opener when you're working with records from a brothel.
Well, sure.
Amongst other things.
Yeah, interesting. I bet you find the most interesting pieces of information.
Yeah, very much so.
How fun. Well, do you still work with the manuscripts?
I no longer. Eric retired, so I went over into working in the library with Michael Mayer. And I've got a number of different projects that I work on there, strictly like the holding file and things like that. But I do a little bit of research for projects that come up and people that want to know a little bit of information on various persons, places, and things.
Sure, sure you do. Oh, I think that's just, you're just incredible. I mean, the information that you come across, I can vouch for. She finds the most interesting pieces of information. Oh my gosh. Well, you happen to have many years and hours under your belt at the Nevada Historical Society. Can you tell our viewers, well, how long you've been there and all the hours that you've gained?
Well, I started in 1984, and at that time they didn't count the hours and all of that. And then when I went through docent training again in 2004 to take a refresher course, and so I could get a pin with my name on it, they started collecting hours, and as of now, I think I've got somewhere around 5,000 hours in the last 11 years or so.
Goodness sakes. 5,000 hours.
Yeah.
Well, you win awards too, don't you, for the hours you put in?
We get little pins and everything on that, and in 2009 I did win the Marjorie Fordham Award for the Outstanding Docent. We have a luncheon once a year, and I got a nice little letter opener on that, and that was very, very nice. And Eric Moody gave me a nice talk at the luncheon on that before he retired, and that made me feel real good.
Well, that is nice. That's nice. I mean, what, 5,000 hours? You should be getting an award every week, I think. I love that. Well, now, what do you like to research the most?
Anything and everything related to Nevada, whether it's a person or a place or an event, something that I can go back into the files or the records or the manuscript collections or newspapers at the Historic Society and find out how, why, where, when, and how.
Oh, well, sure. Oh, well, that's nice. And I think there's probably a couple pieces of paper that you can research at the...
Oh, yes.
All right. Well, now, do you, when you're researching, do you take your own pictures?
I don't do any pictures.
Okay.
We've got Lee Brumbaugh, who's curator of photography, but I go through all the 700,000 pictures that we've got
Wow.
available up at the Historic Society and look for things
Oh,
that I'm related to searching.
yeah. How interesting. Wow. Okay, well, now, people, people, they come in and they ask you personally to help them find genealogy or a place that they're buying or...
Well, they usually come into the Historic Society because it's open Wednesday through Saturday from 12 to 4. And if I happen to be there, like last week, a lady come in and wanted to research a house she was interested in buying in Virginia City, and I happened to know about it, so I was able to get her on the right track to find
Oh,
things.
nice.
But lots of times people will just come in and the librarian or the librarian assistant will give them a folder or a manuscript or different things, and if it's something that I can help them with, I'm more than happy to help them with. I go up there 2 days a week and spend about 6 hours a week up there, and if there's something special, then they'll come up and either ask for me or I'll work with them directly.
Oh, I see. Sure. And that's for like, like genealogy or TV shows or radio or newspaper. Do any, anybody like that come in and ask for your help?
Yeah, we've had a number of local TV stations, and then there was one television program called The Dead Files that came in, and we pulled all kinds of things, and I worked with them one-on-one with Steve for about 6 hours, telling him all about Virginia City, but unfortunately they didn't use hardly anything that we had given them information-wise.
Oh, well, that's sad.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
But
too
you
bad.
have editors and you have
Sure.
producers and all of things
Yeah.
like that.
Right.
But we do get a lot of the local TV stations that are looking for this or that or whatever, and if I happen to know about it, I can help them, or they just use the library and pictures and things
Sure.
like that we have up there.
Well, do you help local Nevada authors?
Oh, yes, I do. There's one very special lady that I've been helping for the last few years named Sandie La Nae.
Oh, yes, and you helped greatly with the St. Mary Louise Hospital book and my the old Genoa Bar book, and then of course our Weird Reno book. Yeah, she got me all kinds of wonderful historic information for those books. Well, speaking of our books and Weird Reno, let's talk about that.
I'd love
Okay?
to.
All right, can you tell our viewers, this is an interesting story, can you tell our viewers how this book came to be?
Well, it's a very interesting story. When I look through newspapers and I'm researching something, and I find the article in a newspaper, I look through the whole page. And one day I was doing something, and over in the right-hand column, they were talking about this trial that they had in Reno of this doctor who, this is back in like the 1920s, he had performed an illegal operation on this lady, and he had to bring her to the hospital, and she passed away. And the other doctors there realized that he was doing something that was not so nice at this maternity home. And so the police were called. Well, in the investigation, they went to the maternity home and, how do I put this politely, went through the wood stove they had there and collected the bones from this illegal operation. And they took and they got them all cleaned up, mounted on cardboard, and put them in a safe deposit box. And when the trial came up, they took them out of the safe deposit box and they brought them in for evidence. Well, I was so enthralled with that whole thing that I wound up going through and reading about the trial, and he was convicted, and he spent a couple of years in jail, and he got released and went to Mexico and practiced medicine. But anyway, so I was so enthralled with this thing on Facebook, I put a little message up there one day, and I go, "What's in your safe deposit box?" And from that, you jumped on it, and the next thing I know is I said, "Oh, Weird Reno," and it took off after that.
Yes, it did. It took on a life of its own, our Weird Reno book. That was so interesting. I'll never forget that day. It's like, "Oh, Arline, look what you said. Okay, here's the book." Well, now you and I, Arline and myself, we are planning on a trilogy with this book. Our first book, of course, is Weird Reno, and then we are now just in the process of writing Weird Virginia City, which possibly could turn into Volume 1 and Volume 2, because she's got at least 5,000 pages of information that we need to write down for the book. And so we're probably thinking of a like 1858 through 1900 for Volume 1, and then 1900 through present day for Volume 2. And then the third book in the trilogy is going to be called Weird Carson City. So we have an awful lot of busyness ahead of us, and you have an awful lot of research to do.
Yeah, well, when we did Weird Reno, I had a big fat notebook that I turned over to Sandie that had all of these things that I had collected over the years and printed out and never knew what to do with. So it had things like Sonny Boy from the Historic Society and various things, and Bertha and Tina, and you put in a lot of work figuring out the movies and the famous people that were born in Reno, and going on and expounding a little bit further on some of the little things that I had found, and fleshed it all out until it was great, and here we have.
It's a nice book too, if I can say so. It's full of history. It's full of thrills and chills, and there's anecdotes too.
I love those.
Yeah, there's just fun things throughout the whole book too. Very, very interesting. I had a lot of fun writing that because of the research that Arline put into, well, giving me all the information to put in this book. It's been great. And you know, we have had an awesome success with this book. We've had a couple of very successful book signings. We've also had this wonderful write-up by Reno Gazette Journal Guy Clifton. He wrote this wonderful article for the book. So it's been very, very successful. I'm just really happy with this book, and I have a feeling that Weird Virginia Cities and Weird Carson City is going to be awesome too. That is so cool.
And the Weird Virginia City book will not be the mind did this and the mind did that and the whole bit. It's about the lives and the events and the happenings and the weird things that went on with the people, places, and things up there. So it'll be unlike any other book that has been written about Virginia City. Same thing for Carson City.
Yeah, well, true. Well, with the Weird Virginia City, that's really dear to your heart.
Yes, it is.
That book or those books will be, because you have lived there and worked there, and you know many of the people that lived there.
And I've done a number of tours up there called Ghosts of Buildings Past. You go up there now and you see a t-shirt shop or a fudge shop or the Bucket of Blood, you know, and everybody figured that's it. But I wanted to know what was in the Bucket of Blood parking lot. What were the ghosts of the buildings past? What were they in the olden times? And that's how I started doing all of the research and finding a lot of the secrets of the buildings
Mm-hmm.
and the people up there too.
Well, just as you did with Weird Reno. A lot of interesting tidbits and pieces of well, information that just aren't in textbooks, or they're not in the t-shirt shops. They're in the Nevada Historical Society, and they're Arlene's research. So these books they're an awful lot of fun to read, but boy, they're interesting because they are so full of history and things that have gone on. The people that have created, the founders, they've created and nurtured these 3 cities and towns.
Right,
So,
and there's so much bad information out there on Virginia City by some of the other authors that he said, she said, and the whole bit. And it's not true, you know, so this book will have the facts and the figures and the names and the places and the truth.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. So we have got these books coming up for us. Stay tuned. We'll probably have more shows on Weird Virginia City book and the Weird Carson City book, which I will be kind of excited about writing because I live here in Carson City, I can vouch for some of the interesting things that have gone on or are going on now.
And especially with your Sweeney building coming up.
That's right. Writing a book now about the Sweeney building, the Edward D. Sweeney building, one of the original buildings here in Carson City. So that book is just about ready to be published. I'm excited about that. Arlene, thank you so much for being an awesome guest today.
Well, thank you very much for being such a wonderful writer.
Oh, well, we make a good team, don't we? We do. All right. Can you tell our viewers your contact information so people get a hold of you to help them do research?
Well, they can come up to the Nevada Historic Society and go into the library, and there's a sheet of paper on the front, on the desk there, that you can get a hold of me if you want to do private research, or leave a message for me with Michael or Carol Lee up there, or they can help you right there in the library.
Cool. Thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for watching our show today. It's been fun. Our book, you can get our book at my website, which is www.sandypsychicstones.com. If you would like to have a psychic stone reading by me, you can get a hold of me at my website, which is www.sandypsychicstones.com, and that has all the purchasing information there. And two, if you would like to be a special guest on our show, Psychic Creations, you can contact me at my website again, under admin at Sandy Psychic Stones. But please know that the content of the show is history. We're metaphysical, we have spiritual, paranormal, holistic health specialties, authors, books, researchers. Okay, that's the content of it. Thank you so much for watching Psychic Creations, and we'll see you next show. Turritella agate. The Turritella agate is not an agate at all. It is in relation to petrified wood. Nor is the Turritella agate a fossil of Turritella gastropods. It is a fossil of Elamia tenera gastropods, which are freshwater snails that share a similar shape to ocean-born turritellas. The agatized fossil ruff was misnamed many years ago, but the name Turritella is still used. Turritella agate is from Wyoming, USA. The colors of the fossilized snails are amber, golds, and bluish set in a gray-black to dark brown matrix. The size of the fossil spiral snails can range up to 1.5 inches long. The fossil story begins in early Tertiary times, approximately 60 million years ago, when a series of geological events caused the uplifting of mountains that would come to be known as the Rockies. As the land was raised upwards, it formed 3 Eocene age, 38 to 58 million years ago, lakes in the area of Wyoming, Montana, Colorado, and Utah. Over the millennia, violent eruptions of nearby volcanoes helped create a pristine environment for fossils to form, what with the lake mud and everything in it becoming petrified or frozen in stone. An archaeological dig in the Czech Republic revealed beads containing fossils of gastropods that are almost 30,000 years old. The metaphysical uses of Turritella agate are: it is useful to carry during difficult times of change and transition, as it grounds, rids negativity, brings forth clarity and understanding of the changes. This stone also helps with communicating with the plant and mineral kingdoms. The metaphysical use of Turritella agate is: it stimulates and soothes the digestive tract.